That's it on FS1.
The rest of the sporting world may be taking an all-star break breather tomorrow, but for the first time in promotional history, the UFC heads to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And there is the main event, two of the most feared power punchers at 135 pounds, Michael McDonald and John Lineker. This pair of top 10 bantamweights are fine-tuned to play some sweet chin music tomorrow night. The FS1 UFC Fight Night weigh-in show starts right now. Tomorrow they fight, today they face off. Hello everyone and welcome to our Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles for a rare Tuesday weigh-in show. I am Karen Bryant with a pair of the hardest working fighters in the UFC roster. Middleweight king, Mr. Michael Bisping, and former light heavyweight champion Rashad Evans. We've got Megan O'Leary on location for us as well. Guys, though, before we get to the fights, big news coming yesterday that the UFC has been sold to the WME IMG Group to the tune of $4 billion. The Fertittas become minority owners. Dana White stays on as president. WME IMG co-CEOs Ari Emanuel and Patrick Weitzel commented on the sale, saying, "We've been fortunate over the years to represent UFC and a number of its remarkable athletes. We're now committed to pursuing new opportunities for UFC and its talented athletes to ensure the sport's continued growth and success on a global scale." Well, guys, if anybody had any doubts as to the global impact of the UFC, we could pretty much put those doubts to rest now.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations to Dana and Lorenzo. That is absolutely incredible. $4 billion, the biggest sale in sports history. And I'm excited to see what the future is going to hold for the UFC. I know Dana said this week it's going to go to the next level. I'm not quite sure what that means because the level's already pretty high, but excited for new times. And once again, congrats to the guys.
I mean, you take a $2 million investment, you turn it to a $4 billion return. Yeah. Congratulations, that's all you can say. But, you know, as a fighter, you know, there's a part of me that kind of is scared for the next level, not knowing what it brings, just because change is always scary.
Old guys like us, we ain't going to see the changes. Our careers are done almost.
It takes usually like 2 years before change to happen, so we'll see what happens.
Maybe they'll bring in a seniors league, Michael, for the Well, we are going to discuss the UFC sale a little bit more later on in the show. We've got some breaking news on UFC 203, so stick around for that. But, guys, of course, the show goes on tomorrow. Champ, we're going to talk about our headliner first. Yes. Michael McDonald has the most knockdowns in bantamweight history, and John Lineker has an 8-0 knockdown ratio. So it's safe to say someone's getting dropped tomorrow?
Yeah, I would say so. Both of these guys always go toe-to-toe. John Lineker is one of my favorite fighters to watch, simply because he uses the body shot so much, and he uses them very effectively, very aggressive, always going forward, always swinging punches. Yes, he does have other skills, but he's always about the boxing. And likewise, Michael McDonald, very, very exciting striker. Likes to mix it up a little bit more, uses his kicks, not quite as one-dimensional with his striking. But these two will go toe-to-toe in the middle of the octagon.
Yeah, and these guys hit with bad intentions coming forward. As you said, Lineker puts a lot of bank in those body shots and get the guy, get their hands down. Then he loads up top. But I'm telling you right now, this is going to be one of those fights you cannot turn your head away from because somebody's going to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely, Rashad. We also have a great fight in our co-main event. Lightweight Tony Ferguson is third ranked, and he actually was expected to face Michael Chiesa, but an injury to the 10th ranked Chiesa means that Lando VANNATA is going to step in with just 2 weeks' notice to face El Cucuy.
And that's a tall order. I mean, Tony Ferguson is one of my favorite fighters to watch inside the octagon because he's just so creative, and you never know what he's going to do. His creativity allows him to be free, and that's when he's best in that space of creativity. But VANNATA has one advantage, the fact that he doesn't have to worry about anything else because it's just a 2-week fight, taking on short notice. For him, he can go out there and just say, let it happen.
You know, it's funny that you talk about Ferguson's creativity because VANNATA this week said that Ferguson is predictable, which is quite laughable, if I'm honest. So that's the confidence of never being in the UFC and never getting his backside kicked quite as hard as it could be on the regional circuits. But this guy's undefeated. He's brimming with confidence. Should be an interesting showdown.
Should be. Well, the table is set, folks. We're going to get you to the weigh-ins. Our man, Jon Anik, you know, he's a hard-working man himself. He has traveled all the way to Sioux Falls. He is rocking the mic. Take it away, Jon Anik.
What is up, Sioux Falls, South Dakota? Great to be here for the first time. Thank you all for coming out. How about a hand, our Octagon girls, Vanessa, Ashley, Chrissy Blair bringing up the rear, and Sean Shelby the greatest talent relations man in the world. All right, let's get going here. We begin with the UFC Fight Pass prelims, UFCFightPass.com. First up in the middleweight division, Devin Brown Bear Clark versus Alex the Spartan Nicholson.
Alex the Spartan Nicholson is making his second UFC appearance, fighting out of Orlando, Florida. The Spartan has a professional record of 6-2 with 5 wins by knockout and 1 by submission. The Spartan calls himself a basketball brawler. Not entirely sure what that means, but it sounds good.
You're supposed to get a verbal from you.
184 for Alex Nicholson. And his opponent making his UFC debut from Sioux Falls. Please welcome Devin Brown Bear Clark.
Devin Clark is making his UFC debut with an undefeated record of 6-0. He's a former champion in other organizations. Clark is from Sioux Falls, and he said there is no added pressure fighting at home in Sioux Falls. He said his main objective is picking up a big W tomorrow and letting the rest of the middleweight division know he has arrived.
184.
185 for Devin Clark. All right, moving on now to the bantamweight division. YAHYA versus Matthew Lopez. First fighter to the scale, the undefeated Matthew Lopez.
Matthew Lopez makes his UFC debut tomorrow night, and expect big things from the Southern California southpaw, especially when it comes to grappling. He's a 4-time state champion, and he's been the head wrestling coach at Rain Training Center for over 4 years.
135.
136 for Matthew Lopez. And his opponent making his 10th UFC appearance, YAHYA.
YAHYA is a well-rounded fighter, but it's fair to say that he is a jiu-jitsu specialist. 16 of his 21 wins have come by a variety of submissions, so it's no surprise to learn that he is a former jiu-jitsu world champion. However, that's all in the rearview mirror. This guy's been a professional MMA fighter for over 14 years.
$135, the official weight earlier today for YAHYA. And that brings us to the FS1.
Welcome back to the Los Angeles studios. You can catch the next 4 fights on FS1, the exclusive home of the UFC. The FS1 prelims start with lightweight Scott Holtzman versus Cody Pfister. So, Michael, why don't you tell us about the Ultimate Fighter Season 15 competitor, Pfister?
Yeah, so Cody the Fist Pfister, he first came to our attention as a contestant on the Ultimate Fighter Live. As we know, he didn't win that season, but he got a shot at notoriety when he took on Super Sage NOKE. Okay, he didn't win that fight, but he's keen to get redemption tomorrow night, and he calls himself the Fist, and I'm pretty sure that's what he wants to stick in his opponent's face.
156, the official weight for Cody Pfister. And his opponent, Scott Holtzman.
Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman is bouncing back from a loss from his last fight that he took on short notice. Holtzman said it was a big slice of humble pie he got served, but he isn't a stranger to having a piece of humble slice served to him. He said in training at the MMA lab, he trains the guys of Vincent Henderson, and he said he has many days where he took losses in practice. Sometimes it takes losses in order to get you where you need to be mentally speaking, and let's see if he learned a big lesson and bounced back from that loss.
155.5 for Scott Holtzman. Our next prelim prelim is in the strawweight division. Courtney Cast Iron Casey versus Christina Barbie STANCIU.
Romania's Christina STANCIU had no problem taking this fight on short notice because she said she was already in great shape. In fact, she was in such good shape that this morning at weigh-ins, she was ready at 8:30 in the morning and the official scale wasn't even open until 9 a.m.
I hear she was there at 8:30 a.m. this morning, waiting to get onto the scale, so the weight cut was no problem. Plenty of time to rehydrate.
114, the official weight for Christina STANCIU.
And there she is.
Nailed it.
Apparently she was trying to get
And
people
her
to hurry up
opponent,
and get on the
please
scale.
welcome Courtney Casey.
Well, Courtney Casey comes to us fighting out of Maui, Hawaii. Now, here's the thing, guys. When she made her debut in the UFC, she came against Joanne Calderwood, who is no easy task for anybody. Didn't go her way. Her next fight against CHOOKAHAN, she also didn't get the win. But listen to this. 2 fights in the UFC, 2 fights of the night. This woman knows how to throw down and scrap. This is going to be a fun fight. She's formerly a soccer player and came into fighting after that career ended. But look for good things for her tomorrow.
If you come from Maui, why would you want to fight? I think there are better things to do than go to an MMA gym.
116 for Courtney Casey. Our next prelim is in the middleweight division. Eric Sabrina Spicely versus Smilin' Sam Alvey.
It has been less than a month since Sam Alvey dropped a decision in Ottawa, Canada, so he jumped at the opportunity to get back in the octagon and back in the win column here in South Dakota. So what has he been doing in Sioux Falls so far? Well, he's been going to the water park and looking for Pokemon, of course.
185 and a hook for Sam Alvey.
Yeah, he was actually saying on Twitter this morning that Pokemon helped him cut the weight, so perhaps he was wearing his plastic suit while he was running around. Yeah.
He literally is always smiling his head off.
Always.
Eric Spicely's making his UFC debut at middleweight. He was on Tough 23, but his dreams ended after he lost in his semifinals due to a KO. He's a former pro skateboarder, and he says he attributes a lot of his MMA success to the hard work that he had to do when he was a skateboarder.
185 for Eric Spicely.
He said there's a fun story. He was actually at a party, and the fight broke out. And he didn't know what he was doing. He watched the UFC a few times, ended up breaking up the fight, and everybody convinced him that he should do jiu-jitsu, and he did, and then he got into MMA.
And there's that big smile from Alvey. You know, I sparred with Alvey, and even when you're sparring,
And that brings us to our
really
feature
good.
smiling.
prelim in
Cat.
the bantamweight division. Lucky Lauren Murphy versus Caitlin Blonde Fighter Chookahan.
Well, folks, blonde fighter, look at that hair. It's beautiful, giving Holly Holm
Beautiful.
a run for her money. But listen, she is making her UFC debut. But you can expect good things. She comes from the team that supports Frankie Edgar, Edson Barboza, Mark Henry at the helm there with the boxing. So look at, we're going to see this girl let her hands go tomorrow night, I am sure.
135 for Caitlin Chookahan.
and training with those guys, certainly no stranger to the wrestling department as well.
Right, absolutely.
Murphy.
In 2010, Lauren Murphy took her son to his first jiu-jitsu class because she wanted him to get martial arts training. She decided to jump into the adult class, fell in love, transitioned to MMA, and here we are in 2016, 6 years later, as she prepares for her 4th Octagon appearance.
.135.5, the official weight for Lauren Murphy. get to the main.
All right, welcome back to the desk here in Los Angeles. We are ready to weigh in the fighters on the 6-fight main card, which you can see on FS1 Wednesday night. First up, flyweights Louis Smolka and Ben Nguyen. Mike, tell us about Nguyen, who was actually born in Sioux Falls.
Yeah, born in Sioux Falls, but relocated out to Australia. So I don't know what's wrong with Sioux Falls, but I know Australia is a great place. This guy has 9 wins by KO, finished 7 opponents in the first round, won 9 in a row, Taekwondo black belt, Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, and a Judo green belt. Sounds like he's got almost all the colours of the rainbow there.
125 for the Sioux Falls native, Ben Nguyen. And his opponent, please welcome Louis Smolka.
Louis Smolka, the top prospect in the flyweight division with a 10-1 record. He said he's never felt as good as he did this camp. He said most of the time, I'm gonna be straight up and honest, I'm a baby during camp. I hate training, I hate everything about it. My coaches and my teammates, they push me through it. But this camp was different because I actually felt excited about it. Expect big things for him tomorrow night because he felt good about training. So, hey, when you feel good about training, the fight is easy.
Train hard, fight easy.
That's right.
That's what they say.
It is what they say. Is it what you do, Michael?
125.5, the official weight for Louis Smolka.
Everybody wants to fight easy. You know, it can't always go that way, unfortunately.
Our next main card bout is in the welterweight division. Kyle Noke versus Keita Keitaro Nakamura.
With 41 professional fights, Keita Nakamura made his UFC debut in 2006. He returned to the organization in 2015, and tomorrow night is looking to get back in the win column against Kyle Noke, a guy he says is a tough veteran with very good striking.
171 for Keitaro. And his opponent, the Australian veteran, Kyle Noke.
We first saw Kyle Noke as a contestant on Tough 11, but prior to that, he started his MMA training in year 2002, but used to be the security guard for the world-famous crocodile hunter Steve Irwin. After he passed away, he decided to start focusing on MMA full-time, started going out to Greg Jackson's in Albuquerque. Since then, has made a big impact in this sport.
170.5, the official weight for Kyle Noke.
Yeah, I was there when he actually came to Jackson from that whole crocodile hunter thing, and he's totally changed as a fighter, his mindset and everything. He's developed more into the kind of fighter that he always wanted to be.
All right, our next bout should be a good one in the heavyweight division. Alexei the Boa Constrictor OLEINIK versus Daniel OMIELANCZUK.
OMIELANCZUK is 18-5-1, and one of those heavyweights who have a lot of potential, but he really is on the cusp of figuring out his fighting style as far as getting into his groove and really becoming the prospect that I believe he can be. He's a big guy with a lot of potential and a lot of power in both his hands and feet.
248 for Daniel OMIELANCZUK.
And I believe I just butchered his name, but that's
do our best.
a lot.
It's okay because he butchered the steps.
Yes, he did.
With his first 2 UFC victories coming by way of first-round stoppage, expectations are high for the boa constrictor Alexei OLEINIK. With 38 of his 50, that's right, 50 career victories coming by way of submission. Don't blink if he takes this to the canvas.
243 and a hook for Alexei OLEINIK.
And OLEINIK is the favorite in this one, guys, at a -200 to OMIELANCZUK's +160.
Yeah, this guy's had 60 professional MMA fights. He's been a busy boy.
The best haircut I've seen today.
Well,
Is
the best and the worst.
Yeah.
The best
Depending how you look at it, you know.
Feature bout in the middleweight division. Tim Boetsch versus Josh Samman. First fighter to the scale, please welcome Josh Samman.
It has been about 2 months since the release of Josh Samman's autobiography, The Housekeeper, Love, Death, and Prizefighting. He called the writing process a rebirth, and he said going into this fight with Tim Boetsch, he really feels like he has a second chance.
$186, the official weight for Josh Samman. And his opponent making making his 19th UFC appearance, Tim the Barbarian BOETSCH.
Well, if you've been watching the UFC for a while, you know who this guy is. Tim BOETSCH, the Barbarian, first got his chance in the UFC, taking on David Heath of 2 weeks' notice and made a big splash, showed beautiful front kicks and literally threw the guy on his head. BOETSCH started wrestling at 6 years old, started Jeet Kune Do shortly after that, 4-time state wrestling champion. Hold on for the weight.
186 for Tim BOETSCH.
Entered into the Maine Wrestling Hall of Fame. Sounds like I was trying to rap there, but it really wasn't. He's the Maine Wrestling Hall of Fame. It's like everyone's, shut up, Michael. You can't even talk, let alone rap.
And that brings us to the co-main event in the UFC lightweight division. Cody El Cucuy Ferguson versus Groovy Lando VANNATA.
Lando VANNATA is an undefeated fighter coming out of Jackson's Winklejohn MMA with an 8-0 record. You know, he trains along with the likes of Carlos Condit and Donald Cerrone. He's taking his fight on short notice, and he feels very little pressure. And he says, you know what, all the pressure's on El Cucuy. He says he sees that El Cucuy is very predictable, and he thinks he's wild and crazy, but he just does the same thing over and over again. Not impressed by his style, my friend.
155.5 for the
Quite possibly the only man not impressed with El Cucuy.
I assure you he's going to pay for those comments.
The best lightweights in the world. He has won his last 7. Tony El Cucuy Ferguson.
Tony Ferguson is one of the most intense individuals you will ever see. He comes in down to the Ruka Training Center where I train in the off-season. He's always in the gym, and I watch him when I'm training. I'm like, wow, this guy is possessed. He has a look in his eye that you would not want to mess with. That's why he's so successful in the octagon. And I'm expecting him to get right in his face now and say, what the hell are you talking about?
A former baseball player as well, just an all-around
Here we go.
athlete.
Oh.
Uh-oh. VANNATA looking a little smaller as well.
Tony a little more chilled out than what I expected, to be honest.
Now it is time to take a closer look at the men on the poster. They will share the octagon in tomorrow night's bantamweight main event. Take a look.
I'm gonna be in martial arts to the day that I die, and I love martial arts. There's a lot of emotions that come along with fighting in front of thousands of people. When I was coming out to the octagon for my Kanahara fight, I was really trying to stay focused on my task, but after the fight is done, I can finally look up, just let all those emotions out and just feel it all. John Lineker is a different puzzle, just like all the opponents will be.
Eu venho buscando, né, desde o começo que eu entrei no UFC. Primeiramente, estou muito feliz por essa oportunidade de estar podendo fechar a noite, fechar o evento, né, com a luta principal. Isso só me motiva cada vez mais a chegar no meu objetivo, que é ser o campeão.
John, hands of stone Lineker.
What has been hard for people to figure out about John is his tenacity. His primary strength is his volume of power punches. When he hits you once, he's gonna hit you 7 times. And he is a very well-rounded fighter. He just finished Francisco Rivera with a guillotine choke. I'm really not intimidated by the win streak that he's been on. I have my confidence in my skill, and I know that my training has been top-notch. I'm ready for 5 rounds.
Então, o McDonald é um cara muito duro, um cara bom, mas ninguém é invencível, então com certeza aí eu vou procurar buscar essa vitória aí com mais nocaute em cima dele.
There's a high possibility of one of us getting knocked out, and that's exciting.
Buscar aí mais uma vitória, com certeza, de chegar lá e ser o campeão.
First fighter to the scale, must-see TV, number 8 in the world, John Hands of Stone Lineker.
Unless you finish English soccer very, very closely, you probably won't know that he's actually named after an English soccer player, or football as we call it, called Gary Lineker. However, started MMA 5 years ago, and we all know, I speak about it a lot, he loves the body shots, and the reason why he goes for them all the time is that he says he loves the look on his opponent's face when he lands a good body shot. And I can tell you, if you don't fight, body shots hurt. They hurt like crazy. Punches in the face you can take, but the body, it only takes one.
136, the official
Well, and that's how you chop a guy down, too.
No, it really
you
is.
can't just headhunt through a
And
fight.
his opponent currently ranked number 5 in the world, the former title challenger, Michael Mayday McDonald.
Michael McDonald is on his second fight since he's been off for 2 years on injuries. And you know, this guy hit so hard, he kept breaking his hands, but now he's back. He's feeling a lot better. And after his last fight, he got himself in a little bit of trouble on the ground, but then made his way out and showed an impressive submission. Well,
135 for Michael McDonald.
An impressive submission showed that jiu-jitsu brown belt, but he's like one of those guys who's excited to fight. You see him go out there and you just feel the intensity. When he's going out there and when he's punching, he's going out there and knock somebody out.
And you can see a clear height advantage for McDonald there.
All right, folks, how about a hand
Being
for
a
the
striker,
headliners, Michael McDonald
always-
and John Lineker. Thank
always
you all
want
so
that.
much for coming out. We'll see you right back here for the fights tomorrow night.
Well, stay right where you are, folks. We'll hear from Michael McDonald.
July 13th, the UFC breaks new ground with its first ever fight night in South Dakota. In the main event, Michael Mayday McDonald takes on John Hands of Stone Lineker in a bout showcasing two of the sport's best strikers. And powerful middleweight finishers Tim Boetsch and Josh SAMMAN square off. Don't miss UFC Fight Night July 13th, live at the Denny Sanford Premier Center in Sioux Falls. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com.
The UFC returns to the United Center July 23rd, and two of the sport's toughest divisions are about to get turned upside down. In the main event, former women's bantamweight champion Holly Holm meets ferocious kickboxer Valentina Shevchenko, and former Strikeforce champion Gilbert Melendez returns to action against Edson Barboza in a thrilling lightweight battle. It's all going down at UFC Fight Night, Holm versus Shevchenko in Chicago. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com.